And welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montier, coming to you live right here from, where are we? The Colony, Texas.
Yes.
We found out that's
not Colony, Texas.
Not Colony, Texas.
We are in the Colony,
the
Texas.
The Colonies, like the University of Miami. But very, very excited to be out here tonight. Very excited to be discussing not only the end of the Arizona Diamondbacks' first half of their season, but the MLB Draft results tonight. Of course, my name is Derek Montia, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me, of course, your vice mayor, occasionally known as Thunderstick, Jesse Friedman. Jesse, the MLB Draft has happened, at least the first day of the MLB Draft. The Diamondbacks had 4 picks in the first day of the draft, including one at the end of the first round, a few in between, and then one in the second round. Yeah. What is your initial thoughts on what they were able to do tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got 4 clear superstars, Derek. I mean, it's obvious to everyone, right? I think we all know it. No, the MLB Draft is the MLB Draft, and we're not going to have any idea how the Diamondbacks did today for, upward of 4 or 5 years for some of these guys, probably. I mean, probably more than that, really, because you're going to have to see them probably play in the majors for several seasons before you really have a feel for how good they're ultimately going to be. But on paper, I think the D-backs did pretty well today. The draft pundits seem to be pretty happy with what they did, specifically the first 2 picks, getting Slade Caldwell, an outfielder, a high school outfielder at number 29. He was ranked higher than 29 in at least a lot of different places that I looked. And then at 31, they got another outfielder in Ryan Waldschmidt. And everyone knows, Derek, the Diamondbacks don't have enough outfielders. They've had a shortage of outfielders for a long time. So they clearly needed more outfielders, and they just had to fill those gaps. No, that's not true.
Especially very diminutive outfielders that are very fast and have a poor arm rating. That's definitely fits, I think.
Did we get mini Corbin Carroll?
We may have.
I didn't think it was possible, but did we get mini Corbin Carroll?
Say mini Corbin Carroll is
how short is that?
That's
man?
Pretty little, I would say. Though I will say, what is Corbin Carroll even listed as? Because there's some things saying that he's like shorter than me, and
he's officially listed at 5'10".
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's
no
okay.
matter which site you go
that's
to.
what I'm officially listed as well. Even though.
Where are you officially listed?
Don't
worry
about
doctor's
it.
office.
Yeah. I mean, I keep stats on myself. I gotta keep stats on myself. But Jesse has stats, of course, on Slade Caldwell. Of course, we do lead all of Major League Baseball in Slades. That's very important. But it's also important that despite his size issues, a lot of analysts have said that he still can hit really well. He generates a ton of line drive contact, and he can be a really great hitter in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, do we have the scouting grades? If we go to the scouting grades here real quick, this is from MLB Pipeline. You'll see a variety of different numbers depending on the source that you look at, of course. But MLB Pipeline is a 55 hit tool, 45 power, 65 run, 45 arm, and 60 field. For those not familiar, 20. This is all the 20 to 80 scale, so 50 would be right at average, and then anything above that would be better, and anything below that would be worse. So the 3 tools that really stick out here, Derek, and I think this is pretty universal for any outlet that you look at with Caldwell, is his hit tool, his run tool, and his field tool. There doesn't seem to be much doubt, as far as I can see, about him being able to stick in center field.
For sure.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. His running, certainly you expect that to continue to be a real asset for him. And then his ability to, as you said, just kind of hit line drives all over the field. It's a short, compact swing that seems to play pretty well. And, he's a high school kid. It's probably going to take a while for him to put it all together. But, we saw a high school outfielder in Corbin Carroll who was able to come to the big leagues pretty dang quickly. So we'll have to see how things go for Caldwell. But his profile is honestly pretty similar to Corbin Carroll. I mean, you look back at MLB Pipeline's grades for Corbin Carroll back in the day in 2019. You see a lot of similar numbers there. So
hit tool 60, power 40, arm or run 70, arm 45, field 55, overall 55. So yeah, you're right, and I mean that's why Jacob might be correct, even though probably saying mini Corbin Carroll. Let's say the next Corbin Carroll for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
He's officially listed at 5'9", I think, on MLB Pipeline.
What does Keith Law have him at?
Although Keith Law says he's 5'5.5". So
first thing we need to do is get this man measured for height.
That's the first. I think we know that if someone has him at 5'5.5", and another site has him at 5'9", he's probably 5'5.5", right? People inflate heights. They don't underestimate them. That's not really how that works in this process. Yeah. So
I like to undersell myself. You know that very much, and I've definitely undersold the location that we're at here tonight, because I want to give a shout out to the Rack House here in the Colony, Texas, because the Rack House here has been incredible. This is a scratch kitchen and whiskey bar, and my God, that's what I have out here. I know it's being covered up here a little bit, but that's what I got here in front of me. Some whiskeys for me and Jesse to share. Jesse's declined, as he normally does. So I guess instead of sharing, I will be imbibing these wonderful whiskeys that they brought over to us. But again, a big shout out to the Rack House, because we are out here in Texas. We don't know what we're doing. We're just going around aimlessly knocking on door to door from business to business, asking if they'll let us come do our podcast there, basically. But all jokes aside, this is we were in awe of this restaurant as we drove by it, and we couldn't have thought of a better location for us to be bringing you the MLB draft results tonight, especially because we are here. We're in the mood. It's All-Star weekend. We're very excited to discuss the other things we got to do. I, of course, use this trip really, in all honesty, just to go enjoy the lazy river out at the Frisco Roughriders game, and I got to do that today. So we'll have more on that, but we also have more here on this draft. I did want to give a shout out, though. If you are here in the Texas area for the All-Star game, you got to make the drive out here, both for a Roughriders game and to check out the wonderful Rack House here in the Colony, Texas. But cheers to them. Cheers to Jesse for sharing his whiskey with me that he's not going to drink and was never going to drink in the first place.
I don't think you're all that disappointed that I
know. It's really that you're not wrong.
So.
But also, shout out to Andrew Dang in our chat. Thank you so much. Of course, we still don't have a monitor, so we're still having problems seeing the chats. But I know some of you are confused about the opening music to the show. It's really about the whiskey and the wonderful pot roast that I ingested. But
we're on the road. We're not about to play Lost music.
Yeah,
we're
here partying. I mean, we're not going to – the first half of the Diamondbacks season is over. We are not going to we are going to celebrate the first half of the season, even though it didn't end with a win, but still ended with a series win. But Andrew Dang, thank you so much. He said, wishing both of you having a fun blast at All-Star, but oh my Lord, those All-Star jerseys are so bad.
They are pretty bad.
You're not wrong. Yeah, and like, you know what's really, I'm wearing this shirt that I very much like. It's a Ketel Marte jersey, as some of you may have seen on my Twitter account today. I'm still calling it Twitter. I'll never call it X. You may see the video of the Walmart that I went to that I purchased this jersey at. I've received so many compliments on this.
No free ads.
Including, no, I know. Well, I'm just saying this is not available at the All-Star game, and it's not really available anywhere except at that place I mentioned before that I can't mention again because I used up all of my free ad credits. But I love this one, and of course, this is what it's about being here. There's people that ask me to go pick this up for you. You're going to have to make the trip out to Dallas. I'm sorry. I'm not going back to that place that I won't mention before. But, yes, there's all sorts of wonderful stuff we saw today. We did go back out to the All-Star Village. But, of course, we're excited. We planned this whole show tonight around the MLB Draft because we were excited to see who the Diamondbacks would get. And, honestly, from we're going to talk about picks 35 and 64, but I feel very excited about picks 29 and 31. I feel like there's been a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah.
And so far on people who we respect and kind of trust their opinion looking at their board, they had both of these guys kind of higher than where the Diamondbacks were able to nab them at.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. I'm pretty sure Keith Law had these guys at 12 and 13.
Yeah.
And he's certainly not the only one. There's a variety of outlets that have both of these guys higher than where the Diamondbacks took them. Does that ultimately mean anything at the end of the day? Not necessarily. Of course, as I said, you've got to wait 4 or 5 years before you really have a feel for what sorts of decisions were good and what sorts of decisions were not good on a day like this. But yeah, I think something that certainly stands out for everyone for the Diamondbacks today is going back to Slade Caldwell and the fact that this is a short, speedy, hit over power outfielder who bats left-handed. Like, we've seen a few of those.
We
over
have
the
one
years,
of those
right?
at home.
We have multiple. There are multiple.
We have 2. We had 3. At some point, we might have 4.
Yep. The D-backs certainly they seem to like this specific type of player.
When you have a type, you have a type.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, we just spoke with Ian Redmond, the Diamondbacks scouting director, a few moments ago, and he was, of course, asked about that. And what he basically said was true for Caldwell and true for some of the other guys like that the Diamondbacks have taken, is that they don't play to their height. They're not going to count someone out simply because their height is below a certain level.
Sure.
At the end of the day, height in baseball is not it's not the inherent disadvantage that it is in other sports. Like in basketball, if you're 5'8", 5'9", it's sort of like, all right, well, good luck. But in baseball, if you're 5'8", 5'9", it doesn't inherently change anything about your game. It's just that players in that height range don't tend to have a ton of power, right?
Yeah,
I think that's sort of the main thing that people would look at, and that's fair. But at the same time, we've also seen in baseball, and Corbin Carroll's a good example of this. More so last year's Corbin Carroll than this year's Corbin Carroll.
Fair.
But you can still have a pretty good amount of power even if you're a little bit undersized. And so that's pretty much what Ian said is, if we think a guy plays like he's 6'2", we don't really care what his height is. And that strategy seems to be kind of coming up over and over again with this organization.
Well, it's interesting just to say, what's the root cause sometime of that? The root cause would be that you would say that there's not a lot of major leaguers that are that size or smaller that make it or end up being a superstar or whatever. You would say there's a very small percentage. However, you could also say that those same people sometimes are discouraged at a smaller level because of their size, and they're kind of told that they wouldn't make it at a major league level.
Yeah.
So they're almost maybe told to pursue another sport or maybe even pursue another interest rather than that, wasting your time trying to get to the major leagues when you're such a little guy, right? So, I think baseball is one of those situations where, yes, depending on what position you play, size can be obviously an advantage, but I also think as a hitter, sometimes being kind of smaller can be an advantage too, right? That's a smaller strike zone, a little bit harder to pinpoint in those guys, not to mention speed and other factors there. There's just a lot of things there that, as much as you think size could be a disadvantage, there's advantages probably to being a smaller guy as well, right?
It affects your position for sure, right?
Absolutely.
if you're 5'7", you're probably not going to be playing first base.
Yeah, those days are over for you.
Yeah, that just doesn't really make any sense.
We've moved you to shortstop is what we've done, maybe.
Yeah. Or, in Slade Caldwell's case, I think he has a chance to be a really, really good center fielder, and that obviously has a ton more value than playing somewhere else like first base anyway. So, we'll, of course, have to see how it turns out, but there's a lot to like on paper with Slade Caldwell and the Diamondbacks. The fact that the Diamondbacks have had success developing this particular type of player is also something to make mention of. There's something to be said for kind of sticking with the types of players that you have success with.
Yeah.
Even if you're of course not drafting for need, you're drafting for the best overall player, but you're also drafting maybe for the best overall player that you think you are well positioned to maximize. And the Diamondbacks have done a good job with these types of players.
Well, when you have a type and that type has been good to you, then you want to replicate that, right? Mark Solera paid $2 in our chat just to simply ask you what's wrong with 5'8" people, Jesse.
I feel like I'm standing up.
Yes, Jesse, please explain.
I'm standing up for 5'8" people, aren't I? I'm saying that even if you're a little
standing
bit
up.
height
I'm
challenged.
sure I'm getting that feeling.
You're standing up for 5'8" people? Come
Clearly
on,
you're
Jesse.
sitting down.
You're clearly sitting down.
I think I've made a well-structured argument, Derek, for shorter people having a place in this sport and potentially being undervalued at times. And the Diamondbacks have they've proven that a couple times over the years.
Well, speaking of Corbin Carroll having success and diminutive people breaking through and doing good things for this team, the Diamondbacks drafted Ryan Waldschmidt, which right away, when he has a name like Waldschmidt, and I think of Goldschmidt, there's already some great connections there, despite what I've said in the past. Left fielder from Kentucky, and that is because they were able to draft him at pick number 31 because of Corbin Carroll winning the Rookie of the Year for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yes.
He was ranked, like you said, by Keith Law, very high, much higher than pick 31. And do we have to take a look at his grades as well? Let's take a look at his grades. We got a hit grade of 55, a power grade of 55, run grade of 55, arm 40, fielding 45. So again, because of that arm grade, definitely makes him a candidate for the Arizona Diamondbacks outfield.
Yeah, that's concerning to me. A 6'2" guy who's got a 40 graded arm. That's tough.
Yeah, and I mean that's just MLB Pipeline's assessment. But yeah, Ryan Waldschmidt was 11 on Keith Law's board in his final draft rankings. He had Caldwell at 12. I think I mentioned that earlier. So yeah, Ryan Waldschmidt put up really, really good numbers this past year for Kentucky. Those numbers I have here. He hit 333, 469, 610. Of course, this is in college, but it's also against some of the best pitching out there. 14 homers, 46 RBI. That's over 273 plate appearances. Just 45 strikeouts compared to 41 walks. So he checks a lot of boxes from a hitting standpoint. Ian was just talking about how he really doesn't chase much. That's something that the Diamondbacks like about him, and at the same time, he also impacts the ball quite a bit, as evidenced by those lofty numbers that we were just talking about. So, yeah, he's got a chance to be a really good hitter. The defense is maybe a little bit more suspect. From reports that I've read, some of the public reports, he looked tentative at times in left field. He played exclusively left field last year for Kentucky, although some outlets did suggest that maybe he could play some center field because he tore his ACL last summer in the Cape Cod League. And has sort of been gradually working back from that, and his sprint speed has really increased in that time. So some people seem to think he has a chance to actually play some center field down the road. But yeah, there are more questions on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
Well, the Diamondbacks might have gotten to gems a little bit late there as far as the pipeline ranking for both of those guys. Ryan Waldschmidt was number 23, like you said, in the pipeline ranking. Slade Caldwell was number 27, where the Diamondbacks get him at number 29. Meanwhile, their next two picks seem like perhaps maybe a little bit of a reach. Maybe we don't know because it's baseball, and baseball is how it is. But at pick 35, they take J.D. Dix, unfortunate name, but a good baseball player. D-I-X, let's clarify that. Shortstop for Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin High School. He's their competitive balance round A pick. Pipeline rank had him at number 75. Diamondbacks take him at number 35. What do you think was so, attractive about taking him early?
Yeah, the Diamondbacks really seem to believe that he'll stick it at shortstop. Seem to be pretty bullish on his defense. He's another guy who had a fairly significant injury recently. He had a torn labrum in his right shoulder, so his arm strength seems to be kind of still coming back from that. Hasn't necessarily shown up all the way just yet. That's something that Ian talked about, but he also said it looked fine. I don't think there's anything super alarming in that regard. It's just going to maybe take a little bit more time. He's a switch hitter, which is of course interesting. I feel like we haven't seen the D-backs draft too many switch hitters in recent years. And MLB Pipeline threw the DJ LeMahieu comp his direction, which is DJ LeMahieu's had a pretty successful major league career.
Yes,
so I don't really know how I feel about doing major league comps for high school kids, but here we are. If it keeps us entertained now, Derek, then I'm all for it.
That's what it's all about. And they did finally get their catcher as well at pick number 64, and Ivan Luciano from El Shaddai Christian Academy in Puerto Rico. His pipeline rank number 220. Diamondbacks take him at 64.
Yeah.
I do know that they were based on, I guess, scouting and based on, some of the early mock drafts that we saw. It did appear that the Diamondbacks were kind of, I guess, or people were thinking the Diamondbacks were going to take a catcher. They do take him here at 64. But again, quite the reach potentially based on at least the pipeline ranking.
Right. And Ian actually was asked about that. He was asked like, hey, these are just public rankings. These don't necessarily mean much, but there is a very big difference between what these public rankings say and the pick that the Diamondbacks ultimately made today. Ian didn't really go into that too much. He basically just said, as you'd expect, that the D-backs just focus on their internal process, and whatever their internal process says about where they should take a player, that's where they're going to take a player.
Yeah, they're not assessing it based on the pipeline rank, right?
Yeah, shockingly, they're not comparing to MLB Pipeline and wondering how much they would be judged on day one if they made certain picks.
They got to do that. They got to do that. But yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. Again, it's about organizational needs. It's about how you feel about a player. Like sometimes, again, you especially in Major League Baseball, it's the reason why, to be honest, to be fair, the MLB draft isn't that exciting, right? Not a lot of people were talking about it on social media. It's not something that kind of captivates the sports world the same way the NBA draft or the NFL draft captivates the sports world. Obviously, we also know that the players being drafted don't impact the organizations immediately the same way those players do. Not to mention the fact that, yes, we know players don't work out in every sport. There's always players that are drafted high that end up becoming busts, right? But baseball, the percentage is so high as far as busts go because of the degree of difficulty from making it from where they're drafted either at a high school level or at a collegiate level, and then making it as far as, through the minor league system, which, as we have detailed, is a very difficult system to make your way through, both financially and just in advancing and trying to get, up from single A to double A to triple A. But, I mean, that's the reason why I think that right now, of course, organizations, they don't care about what the pipeline rank is because essentially they are trying to find guys. And sometimes those guys might be a diamond in the rough that they think are going to actually be able to make it at a major league level. And that's a huge part of this assessment process, perhaps just as big as the assessment of their, athleticism.
Yeah, and I think with Luciano, something that stands out is that he bats left-handed. It's something you don't see too often, catchers that bat left-handed. It's certainly it's an appealing profile for sure. And according to MLB Pipeline, if we look at his scouting grades here real quick, Luciano's at a 50 hit tool, which is, I mean, that's average.
I had it up earlier, so I threw me for a loop when you wanted it again.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
My
well,
bad.
I don't know what you've had up, Jacob.
Yeah. We can't see anything.
We can't see.
You do have the YouTube pulled up.
Yeah, but it's like 5 minutes behind, and you know that. Don't make me pull the curtain back this far. I'm pulling the curtain back way too far.
I'm ready to pull the curtain back.
Yeah, pull it all the way back.
If
yeah,
Jacob's going to criticize us
the more I'm going to drink this whiskey, the more I'm pulling the curtain back.
Anyway, so yeah, Luciano, a 50 hit tool, which might not sound like much, but for a catcher taken, where the D-backs took him, that's pretty compelling. I mean, if you could have a catcher who has a league average hit tool, I mean, that actually is a pretty significant asset if it pans out that way. He's got a good arm, 55 grade there, a 50 field tool, so needs to work on his framing and his receiving, of course. I mean, he's coming out of high school, but I think there is an opportunity here for Luciano to come in and be an impact catching prospect for this organization, which, as we discussed with Jordan Schusterman the other day, is not something the Diamondbacks really have a whole lot of, right? Christian Cerda, his name comes up a decent amount. Adrian Del Castillo, of course, has taken some big strides this year, but the Diamondbacks have not really developed catchers all that well over the years, and even currently in their system, they don't have a ton of depth at that position. So I don't think that's necessarily why they did this. I think they made this move because that's the way that the board fell, and this was the guy whose name came up. But it doesn't hurt for them to kind of restock some of those catching options in the minors.
What can we do to make the MLB draft more exciting?
I think we just got to call these guys up to the big leagues like immediately.
Yes.
And just see. Yeah. Just you never know.
Just watch them suffer,
so that they go 0 for 40.
Yeah, just say they'll literally might go 0 for their first 75.
What a jump! Here's another idiot young prospect. Look, let's watch this dummy just scramble.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be best for their development. But I don't know. That's the problem that MLB faces, right? There's just no way to bridge that gap outside of just letting these guys go to the minors and work their way up and take those several years and probably become somewhat forgotten about at times in that time. I mean,
sure.
I know some people are certainly dialed into top prospect lists and whatnot, but
Tommy Troy?
For sure. I mean,
go check out what he's doing.
Yeah, Tommy Troy has been better lately after he got healthy, but the reality is it's going to take some time with a lot of these guys, especially the guys coming out of high school. So we'll just have to wait and see.
After watching the Future Skills competition, I think that pyrotechnics and smoke would really help the MLB draft. More pyrotechnics and smoke.
That's a good call.
One
Get
thing
the top 20 guys
there.
Yeah,
they are not there. I do think
there's
that
no
is
hype
a
around
big
these guys.
problem with that, and I understand because when we see the shots of them at home, they're young kids, they're with their family. That's a big part of it. But again, I mean, what a big experience for these guys to be here in Dallas, here at the rodeo stadium that they were doing the MLB draft from.
Yes, they were.
Getting called up, looking fly in their suits, and just getting that honor of standing on stage and putting on a Major League Baseball cap. Screw those other drafts. What better cap to put on than a Major League Baseball cap? I guess what do you put on a single A cap? Would you put on the Diamondbacks, or do you put on a Vasily Rawhide cap? You're it's starting now. You know what I mean?
you try on your rookie ball jersey. I'm going to the complex to play in 117 degrees.
Let's go.
And this is what I'm gonna sweat in when I get there.
Yeah.
One more note on Luciano real quick.
Sure.
This is in the MLB pipeline report that he worked with one other relatively famous catcher out of Puerto Rico by the name of Yadier Molina.
Oh.
Apparently there's a relationship that
Jesse
just
just
developed
basically
there.
said he's the next Yadier Molina.
That's what I heard.
That's exactly what
That's
I
what
said.
reports are
Yes.
saying. Reports
Yes.
from insider Jesse Friedman. Yes, they are.
Von Luciano, a lock to be the next Yadier Molina.
For sure. Well, again, I just have to give a shout out to the Rack House. These people here have been amazing. I want to thank them so much for letting us be out here. Also, shout out to Game Time. This isn't really an ad read as much as it's just the fact that Jacob and I have been utilizing Game Time quite a bit and been just absolutely scalping some tickets. I guess scalping isn't the wrong. That's definitely not the right word because we're not selling them. Nor scalping
it's
is
the
right
alternative.
word. It's the alternative.
We've
just been nailing some deals on some of these tickets, and again, you can save quite a bit of money by using Game Time and getting those last-minute tickets, especially when you don't know if you're going to go to these events or not. So it's a great time to check out Game Time, especially if you're here in the Dallas area looking to attend the All-Star Game, looking to attend the Home Run Derby. Make sure to check out that app. Of course, the first half of the season for Major League Baseball is officially over. The Arizona Diamondbacks do lose their series finale to the Blue Jays by a score of 8-7, but who cares about that? They still won the series. They still finished the first half at 49-48, and I am not going to dwell on this because, again, this is one of those games where you could say this loss was kind of more painful based on the fact the Diamondbacks came back.
Yeah.
But at one time, they were down by 7-0, and then they end up coming back and tying this game, and that was impressive. It was a great sight to see, and, of course, they couldn't get the deal done to tie it back up at 8 or take the win. But the big question about today's game is, do you have any concerns about Zach Gallen? He absolutely got rocked today. He went out there, and in 3 2/3 innings pitched, he gave up 9 hits, 7 runs, 6 earned. He walked 1, struck out 1. By far, not his finest day on the mound.
No, not his finest day whatsoever. Looking at some of the savant numbers, he only had 4 whiffs on 30 swings. It looks like his curveball, he was really struggling to throw for a strike. And granted, Zach Gallen's curveball is the vast majority of the time he's using it for an out pitch. But even in that regard, it wasn't as effective as it normally is. He didn't get a single swing and miss on his curveball today, which for Zach Gallen, if he's not getting any swing and miss on his curveball, it probably is a rough day, and it certainly was today. So, yeah, I mean, rough one for the D-backs. I mean, if Zach Gallen even gives you a halfway decent outing, you feel like you're in pretty darn good position to come away with a 3-game sweep. But Diamondbacks have had a really hard time this year sweeping anyone. I believe they still just have the one sweep against the Cincinnati Reds back in the middle of May.
Eesh.
So, yeah.
Well, Ketel Marte capped off his all-star caliber first half with a grand slam that did get the Diamondbacks right back into this despite Zach Gallen's struggles today. Of course, the Diamondbacks did have a fantastic little run that got them back into this game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get the job done. But, again, is it better to get, like, run up? Is it better to, like, lose 8-0? Or is it better that they came back and had fight? I like to see this.
He's got to show me some fight.
I like to see this team fight. And I know sometimes, as Jesse said to me, they made him believe that they were going to win again after being down 7-0. And I think that's the thing that makes you hurt sometimes. Like, I believed in you and you let me down again. But it is one of those things where, I don't know, I just want to see this team continue to fight. We've seen them lay down and die entirely too often this season. And I think that, again, at least having that fight in them, trying to come back and pull this one off, was impressive. And let's take a look at the count from today's game presented by Desert Financial Credit Union, because, again, this game ended up being a little bit closer, obviously, than it was close. It was close. It was just a close game. They had a chance to really win this one when at one point it didn't seem like they were going to be even in this game.
Yeah, I mean, 7-0, like, you're not exactly thinking about, sweeping the Blue Jays at that point.
Yeah.
It looked pretty dire in that.
You're thinking about packing up your bags and getting out of town early, or if you're not on the All-Star team, what you're going to do with your time off.
Yeah, you mentally move on to exactly whatever your plans are. But, yeah, the D-backs put up a fight. I mean, we've seen a lot more of the answer backs here in recent days. And I think that's a big deal for the Diamondbacks to come back and really show shades of the team that they were last year, where they're able to overcome some pretty big deficits. We've seen more of that here in the last couple of weeks. And if they had pulled this off, I believe this would have tied the largest comeback in franchise history. The Diamondbacks' largest comeback in franchise history, some people might remember, was happened in August of 2022 when Corbin Carroll helped the Diamondbacks in his first big league game. They came back from down, I think it was 7-0 against the Philadelphia Phillies. Madison Bumgarner started that game for the D-backs, and they came back and won that game, I think 13-7. And they almost pulled off a similar comeback in this game, down 7-0, coming all the way back to tie the game. Unfortunately, they weren't quite able to pull that off. So it would have been so good, Derek. I mean, the narrative surrounding this team going into the All-Star break would have been off the charts, immaculate, if the Diamondbacks had pulled this off. But even though they didn't, they're still in decent position, right? They're still a game above 500. They still finished off the first half with a series win. So still a pretty strong final couple weeks here for them.
It's just baseball, right? Baseball is one of those sports where, it's understandable in football where you want to get, lose your mind over a win or a loss because you have an entire week to kind of sit on it and chew on it and think about it, right? You have a limited season. Baseball is 162 games, but it does kind of suck to end such a fantastic run that they've had on any kind of sour note at this point. Thank you so much, Faj. He is,
what a servant. What a servant's heart.
He's not a servant. He is a sweet, sweet boy. And I'm not going to let you talk about him that way. But, it's still just a really impressive run that the Diamondbacks went to close out this first half. And I think that, again, Ketel Marte did everything that he could to secure the win today. So you cannot say our all-star did not try to put this team on his back. And that is why Ketel Marte, of course, is our king snake in today's game. He was 3 for 5 with a grand slam, 4 RBI. And, again, Ketel just continues to be one of the best players in baseball. I think, we kind of joked on our vlog today, and we've talked a little bit about it on yesterday's show, just kind of about the disrespect for Ketel Marte in regards to, his presence here. But
we did find a picture of him today.
We finally did, but I wanted Jesse to see it in person because I walked around and I looked around the All-Star Village a lot myself yesterday, but I needed him to see the gigantic pictures of Corbin Carroll all over the place and the non-presence of Ketel Marte. And I mean, this is a common occurrence. We saw a lot of players pictured that are not actually part of the All-Star game, and we saw quite a few players from teams like the Diamondbacks that weren't being recognized like they should be, right? But we don't care about them. We don't do a podcast about them. We do a podcast about the D-backs and Ketel Marte, and Ketel Marte specifically is one of those guys that, like, again, I understand when athletes are boring. I understand when athletes are kind of like, they don't have a lot of flash to them. They don't have a lot of style to them. That is not Ketel Marte, and I think that's why I find this so egregious. The cool areas and stuff that we saw today, MLB Life, just the inside of Choctaw Stadium with all of the wonderful, all-star graphics everywhere and all of the festivities that they had going on. I just wanted to see more Ketel because I think Ketel's a superstar. I think Ketel is an amazing player, and I just think he's a commodity, right? Everybody knows I'm a pro wrestling commissioner, right? Ketel Marte would be my top babyface, or maybe he'd be my top heel. I don't know. But that man is promotable. That's the man that's a star. That's the man you put on the posters. That's the man that sells tickets, right?
If Ketel Marte plays in New York, this is an entirely different conversation.
It's exactly that. And, I mean, of course – like, you could probably say that about a lot of markets, unfortunately. Ketel Marte is just an exciting player, and sometimes all of a sudden those guys do move to one of those bigger teams, and then the world suddenly realizes it. But it's like he was trying his best to get you to notice him before. You just really weren't, I'm
gonna ask you a question here, all right? How many Instagram followers do you think Ketel Marte has? If you were to just take a shot in the dark here.
I'm gonna guess not many. I'm gonna say like 550,000.
Wow, okay. You actually overestimated. I thought you would say less. 263,000.
263,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I believe is the most on the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll has 157,000. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has 167.
This is how we're deciding who should be like that. Yeah,
I'm just saying to the point of Ketel's brand
popularity.
Yeah, like I feel like how many Instagram followers someone has is at least somewhat representative of that, I guess. And that seemed like a high number to me.
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, it's about promoting. It's about I think this across a few sports. I think there's a few sports that do a bad job of promoting their superstars because obviously. You have your people that are going to root for their teams, and you're not going to change their mind. But still, one of my best friends in the entire world, our buddy Rock Knowledge that we've had on this podcast, he is a huge Arizona Diamondbacks fan, a diehard, if you will. Yet still, you know who his favorite player is? Fernando Tatis Jr., and it makes me sick to my stomach every single time he talks to me about his little man crush on Fernando Tatis Jr., but I allow it because that's what happens in baseball. We all have our guys that we root for. I've talked about being a big Julio Rodriguez fan. Like he's
how many Instagram followers do you think Tatis has?
Oh, double Ketel? Is he in the 500,000 club?
He's well above 500.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 1.2 million or something?
1.7 million.
1.7 million. See?
Julio's at 493K, I think I just saw. Ellie De La Cruz is also right around there.
See?
We could have we could do a whole show there.
Is this what you do? I'm amazed.
Jesse's a big stat guy, but I was never
thought the two of us to pull up Instagram and start using that as a validation tool. I am amazed that it was you.
I'm a numbers guy, Derek.
I get it,
any kind of number, I'm interested.
No, you're right. I will tell you the one thing though that MLB should implement that would make their game immensely more popular, Jesse, and that is a lazy river in every single Major League Baseball ballpark. Because that's what we did today.
Incredible.
That's what we did today.
Incredible.
Secretly, this entire trip has just been for me to get these two guys to drive out to Frisco, Texas with me and to get Saul to pay for it. And so that we could go lay around in a lazy river at a baseball park. And we did that today. Frisco Roughriders graciously had us out to Riders Field. It was an amazing experience because, let me tell you, I mean, Jesse's like, just mute Jesse's mic because he's going to think I'm crazy. I already know his opinion on this. Jacob and I both question if this might have been a top 5, top 3 ballpark experience for us, and that's across all major league and minor league ballparks.
I'm not saying you can't.
This was Disneyland.
This place is beautiful. Like, we came here for the lazy river.
Just wait till they see the footage tomorrow, and then people will know.
I'm not saying you can't like the place. I'm not saying you can't love the place.
The concourse goes
3.
The concourse goes from like a brick path to being like the wilderness where you're under some beautiful trees, to being a beach party out in center field, to being the most wholesome family experience you ever saw of kids waiting in line. The longest line I've ever seen for Bluey in my life.
Okay, but Bluey is elite.
Bluey is elite. He's a true superstar. And again, that's the kind of celebrity presence that you get out at a Frisco Roughriders game.
Jesse, you got to remember, I spend 95% of my baseball games at Chase Field.
Yeah.
Which is quite like. I love the Arizona Diamondbacks,
I think
but it is not good.
That's what it is. We were actually talking about living in different places, right? Like if you grew up in the Midwest or someplace where you kind of got gray skies all the time, coming out to Phoenix or coming out to California is beautiful and life changing. And you're like, I've never seen skies this blue for a week straight. I want to live here, right? Meanwhile, those of us that grew up in the desert with nothing but sunshine beating down on us all the time go to places like Seattle and say, this rain is amazing. I could totally live with this every single day of my life, right? So I think that's a little bit of it, like living our lives in a ballpark that's closed up for the majority of the season. You come out to something that's as open as this with all of these opportunities to, like, I mean, it's amazing. It's just an amazing experience. It was amazing family ballpark, beautiful grass, just beautiful activities and food to eat, so much great stuff going on. But the lazy river, honestly, that is 8 times the amount of water that Chase Field holds, by the way, just saying.
It was huge, and it was really cool.
It was really, really cool. And I think the one difference there is, like, the pool is a suite, whereas this is a community event where you buy a ticket for yourself. You don't need to gather 10 people together and all chip in order to afford it. This is like something that anybody can do, and that's something I talked to a couple of locals that they love. They actually said today was the most packed that they've ever seen, the lazy river. So you'll see that on the video as well. Huh. Well, because Bluey, Jesse, Bluey brings the people out.
Bluey.
Everybody comes out for Bluey, right? But yeah, it's the idea that you can kind of. It would almost be like buying an individual ticket to the pool instead of having to get the suite package in order to attend it. But also, it wasn't a real lazy river because you know what happens. Everybody just posts up at the edge where the baseball game is, and you sit there in a body of water while watching
Still
the sports.
acceptable.
It's amazing. It was a great experience.
I almost got smoked by a home run.
He did, yeah, out by the lazy river. It was a very hard.
It was very sunny, and I couldn't see anything, and I just saw people looking up.
They almost both got murdered.
And then I almost took Jesse out running to the side.
Yeah, I was a little scared for my life and for Jacob's life, but we survived. So
I'm proud of you. And he didn't wear enough sunscreen. He definitely didn't drink enough water. But of course, we've been having a blast. And what did you think overall of the All-Star Village? Because today was your day to first kind of see it.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
It was really fun walking around. I mean, they basically just create a museum, and right by wherever the All-Star game is held, and it's fun to just be able to walk around and people are playing MLB The Show. They're like swinging a real bat with like a VR headset on, which I thought was really cool. We really wanted to get Derek to do that, but the line was just a little bit too long for that. We would have been there probably for half the day, but yeah, it was great, and even better, a lot of it was indoors, which meant that we didn't have to stand outside for the entire day. In what is
the humid heat has not been great on our desert bodies. Let me just say that much.
But it is. I will still argue that this heat here is more bearable than what is currently happening in the desert right now.
We all said that we'd live here.
Yeah.
Jacob I would begrudgingly live here.
No, you absolutely said you would.
He was looking up houses on Zillow, just to let you know.
I look up houses on Zillow wherever I
he
go.
Also
that is definitely something I do almost every day.
Yeah. But, no, I will say that this the one thing about this event is that, like, yeah, you said the lines are long, but being in just the like convention center, we thought that was a pretty thorough experience for fans, and that was just a portion of it. Then you had the outside with the Ferris wheel and the outside, like some of the festivities and activities that you could do outside.
Yeah.
And then you still had Choctaw Stadium, which had vendors. Our guy Poo Poo was out there. Shout out to him. And, of course, they also had our, more activities down on the field level. So I think by doing that, they are creating a good experience of at least trying to spread it out where people aren't all condensed and you're not spending your entire day standing in a line. And I think that's an important part of this whole thing. But MLB really did knock it out of the park, pun intended, when it came to this All-Star Village thing. They created a wonderful experience for the fans. I did it. Look, I've thrown enough free ads around that I figure I should at least throw Max one bone with a pun. But we are looking forward, of course, to, I guess, the main events tomorrow and Tuesday. Yeah. Tomorrow is the Home Run Derby. We will be out there for that, as well as at the All-Star Game on Tuesday. So you can come right back here. Maybe not here at this wonderful location, but we'll be somewhere in Texas. Maybe you can find us. Maybe you won't. I don't know. We'll make a game out of it. But
I'd drive out here to be out here.
Yeah, it's a good place to be right now if you're a baseball fan. But shout out again to the Rack House for having us out here tonight. We will be doing a post-game show, I guess post-game-ish show after the Home Run Derby tomorrow. This guy will be coming to us live, I think, live from the field. And I will be somewhere with Jacob hidden in the back corner. So until then, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, our producer, Jacob Franklin, is at Jacob_Franklin4 because he's the fourth best Jacob Franklin. You know that. I don't need to tell you guys that. But you can also follow our show at PHNX_DBacks. But all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Again, we thank you guys so much for your time. We will see you guys back here tomorrow night. And in the meantime, have yourselves a wonderful night. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it is so much more fun when you use MLB Pipeline to assess your draft picks.
We all silly like the mayor.